Alrighty, so this is just my clamp there, and then I can set tension down to the lower crank and oil sprocket, and then all my slop and all my issues here, right? So that's where I was gonna tap my bolt. Ran into one stupid thing that I didn't think far enough ahead, and this is why you leave things to professionals and all that BS. Right here, right, this tension point works really well actually. It makes it so I can torque off of there, it moves it away from the metal and all the other things that solved a lot of problems. But this little sensor ring here, this metal, has to go through this to let the engine know, the ECU know what position the crank is in, right? So I thought that was perfect, clean, clear, blah, 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 move this out of the way, tap it. And then, of course, you spin this fucker, it's going to put that right into the side of my bolt. And I had considered for half a second cutting out a wedge of the bolt and making it so that it could slot through it and then blah, blah, blah. But you're taking out structural integrity of the bolt and in a very pivotal, important role. So, instead, because rethinking things is something I do well, and I try not to get disheartened because I'm not a professional and this is just learning, but tapping this in and learning how to do that was quite informative. So instead, what I'm going to be doing, I've already, yeah, I'll get that up my eye. Get a little closer, so dark in here. Okay, there we go. Oh, shadow. So I ground this guy down a little bit, and I ground this off quite a lot actually. You can see that. So this was a full ring, right? So I took out as much as I could on this side without actually breaking through the interior there, right? And then I shaved it all the way down, and then I ground it all the way back. So this is all nice and soft. So the belt ever touches here in any way, because it is actually a little tight. Then I reverse this guy so that the lip is not on the inside, it's on the outside. And I want that actually, which is the wrong way to do it, by the way, and I'm aware of this, but it kind of helps in my mind for catching the lip and keeping it away from things, and I think that makes more sense than having it on the interior. And I know the other reason too is because I'm going to fabricate a bracket from here over and down almost to this exact position, but a little bit higher, obviously, somewhere right where my shadow is, right there. And that'll be just an L bracket. Well, not L bracket, sorry. It'll be a straight tab, essentially. Once I build this out a little bit, it'll go straight over, and then I'll be putting my caster into this area right here. And that'll create a point that even when this moves up and down, it'll actually even add more tension into this point here. And then this will work the way that it's supposed to work, and I can use the half moon to tension it, and then use the auto tensioner correctly, because you want the tension being able to set with this the lowest point, so that your auto tensioner actually has as most travel as humanly possible and opportunity to do its job. So yeah, I'm gonna take this and paint it so it doesn't look like I did nothing. But it's a clean. I use my grinder and a bit and a thing and blah 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 and a file and get it down to this. It's nice and smooth and nice, and it's not taken away from it as much as you may think. I mean, this is quite thin here, right? But that's the thinnest point along this little line right here, and then all of the rest of this, and then this whole thing is all around it. And all it has to do is have a little bit of pivot point, right? It doesn't have a whole lot of stress on it. Should do fine. And that's where I am now, and learning and grinding all this away without hurting things was pretty fun. But I just got my corded guy and this little bit. It grinds away nice. You just have to torque on this thing. Luckily is variable speed, but it is a high speed drill, so you just half trigger it or so, because when you're full triggering, it'll rip through this aluminum. And it did a job, and it polished out nice, and moving onward and forward. Alright, so after much head scratching and manipulation, this is my final design and fabrication. I ended up taking a bracket that was for pulling the motor, hoisting the motor out of like the engine or whatever engine bay. That was junkyard pulled off of a motor
because I needed a couple mounts, and I ended up with a couple of these. So this is hardened steel, and so it was a little so this one and this one grabbed onto the exhaust, and this side bent outwards away from the block so you could have a hole to grab, and this was the biggest hole of all of them. Right, so I ended up with, this is my design, and these is my bearings, right? So I decided with the to taper it in like this, just because I want to put as less. Well, I may change this. This is just my first. I'm going to try it out, see how it looks and how it rolls on there. I wanted it this way just because, to eliminate issues and potentials, and keep it away from certain things on the interior that I wouldn't otherwise. So, of course, I'll be locking all this up, but I mean, essentially, I have the distance I want, and now I have these really nice bearings, and I just have to, I want to size up this bolt that goes into the place that I can thread with some ones that I have that are longer, and I'll do that to mock this up. But I will be tapping and threading it for this guy. Of course, the nut on there, that's just to keep the washers in place and from measuring and all the rest of that, and that's the thickness I need to keep it out the distance I need and all the rest of that, and then I just have to final fab it, lock tight in all my nuts, and tighten it, final tighten it. Once I know that it's perfect, I gave myself a little bit of adjustability here, so I was able to put it in place and then move it in or this way, and essentially in that direction. And then I ended up taking this. That hole was an original hole, and then I just bored it down and tapped it, and that's what's given me where I need to be. And essentially, if you can think of the belts, this is up, this is down. Okay, so the interior belt, this is the one that goes to the, hold on, think of, now you've seen the other side, you can kind of visualize. So this is where the crank sprocket is down here, right? So the belt goes up, grabs here, goes up to the tensioner here, and the smiley face is up over here. So I'll put it on there and I'll show you all that and it in place, but I'll be testing it, seeing if this, either I want to taper it or I'm going to offset it and have one side have two of the larger ones and one side have two of the smaller ones, which was what my original idea was. But I was like, I'm going to try a conical idea, and then because this is essentially, this plate here is helping me keep the belt from coming out and slapping anyways, but and it's fitting in there nicely. I mean, it's all, because I had to do all this finalized measuring and all that, and the fat and hardened washers, they're there to just make sure that there's nothing that's going to stop these from spinning, really. And, of course, to make the gap. And you want a gap between here and there and here and there, and then that gives me the belt. Belt can go all the way this way and not have any interference and touch here. So if that's the way I always think, because I want it to go away from slapping on here, because if I put it the other way, tapered the other way, then it would go versus inwards, which would catch onto the other belt tensioner and the crank sprocket. So I'm just going to be figuring all this out, and that'll be my venture for today, and hopefully this is well engineered. I got that, or I've got a really good little trolley car, which is awesome. Later.